Society has long accepted the idiom that the pen is mightier than the sword. 2026 so far is showing us that actually the US dollar is probably the ultimate most dangerous weapon. And nobody in crypto needs to be told that the perfect shield for that is crypto. If you just wish we could somehow shield our bags from the current price death march, or if you're finding value in these videos, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies DRep address and the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Okay, who's here? Thank you to everybody for joining. Thank you for everybody for joining. This is kind of the end of the week edition, and there are a few things going on. Let's see who's in the comments here. Streetwise is getting cold out here this winter. Yep, getting cold, and we are taking some punishment of that variety for sure. Emilio says, let's go, Emilio. Thanks for joining. Fly Over Me says, let's print. Pretty much. This, we're going to talk about something that wasn't the normal kind of printing, though. We're going to talk about something kind of interesting. Omar Wright says, howdy doody time. Let's go. Iran basically just said to Trump, hit me with your best shot. Let's go. Yep. This is what this is. This is kind of what this is about. It's about what was revealed today, basically. Brody Alden, Brody's here. Let's go. Thank you as always. Cardano is the best. Thanks for joining, Brody. Thanks for joining. Howdy doody. Oh, howdy doody with a D as opposed to T. Okay. Thanks for joining, Omar. Hilldog says, who's having a great time? Ooh, it is tough. It is tough in the streets right now. Charles down 3 billion. He doesn't give a fuck. How can you not love this guy? That's a good point. I don't know how much he's down, but yeah, he's down like the rest of us for sure. Different magnitude. He's down a different magnitude, but he is also down like the rest of us. Okay, if the new Treasury Secretary cuts interest rates in the current K-shaped economy, would Main Street actually benefit? So he can't really do it, right? It's like, oh, you mean with the new Fed chair? If the new Fed chair cuts interest rates, the way the economy is, would Main Street actually benefit? Man, it's so complicated at this point. Like the economy is so weird with the tariffs and everything going on. And man, I don't know. I guess it depends on how much he cuts, how fast the cuts come, what else is going on. I think the biggest thing, actually, I won't comment on how all of those things could impact Main Street because it gets so complicated. I will say, however, that I think the thing crypto needs right now is just increased liquidity, and the 40 billion a month is not cutting it so far. It's not cutting it so far. Maybe it'll kind of stack over the course of the year, and things will start looking better as we've had like 40 billion a month, every single month, and then whatever stealth QE the Treasury Secretary, whatever stealth QE Besant can squeeze out of the actual Treasury, maybe that could have make a difference for us in crypto and other risk assets. Main Street, I don't know. That's a complicated one. Frazik is here. Let's go. Frazik says prices are getting somewhat interesting. Yes, they are. James says, ever since that one dude got insider info about prices crashing, he tried to convert his Cardano into stable coins without enough liquidity and lost $1 million. Everything's manipulated. Yeah, I mean, I think you're talking about the incident with the kind of whale that everybody speculated was probably a long time Cardano holder in Japan, who'd maybe never used DeFi before, something like that. Yeah, things have been tough. That was kind of like on the early side of things getting real tough around here. So that's for sure. Can we all smack the likes every day? Thank you, D.U. It's good for the health of the algorithm. Thank you, D.U. I appreciate that. Yep. 8 Eclipse points out we are free falling. Yep. I am not a singer. You do not want me to sing. I would gladly sing it, but I am not. That would not be pleasing to anyone's ears. So I won't even try it. But everybody imagine the song. Only 7 in here with 8 likes. There's definitely more people than that in here. I don't know what the number I'm seeing right now is like 40. I think there's 40 people watching live right now. But I know you made that that comment previously when that might have been the actual number. Brown Weirdo says, "Welp, my crazy lowball limit buys filled a few hours ago, but at what cost?" Yeah, that's always the problem, right? When you have super low orders in the order book that actually do get filled, you're like, "Oh, my orders got filled, great." But is the world burning down also? I'd rather be using this money to do stuff other than investing in other things, but Alias, not yet. Okay, okay. Rulo's here says, "Hola, this too shall pass." True, true story, true story. Rulo is correct. James says, "Keep buying." James says, "If I can get a 4 to 5x at these lows, I'll take it." Yeah. Otis Frichov is here. Good evening, AOS fam. Let's go. Let's go. There's James laying out his case for what could happen. Brown Britter says the like counter is not very live for me. Yep. Sometimes it definitely lags. Otis Frichov says, "Hell, I'm using this low ADA price to buy my Infinity Rising assets. Great pricing if you're into that gaming project." Yeah, I mean, like, if the pricing doesn't adjust for these sudden swings, you can definitely get pretty good buys on all kinds of assets that are denominated in crypto. So if they don't have them, automatically set up to adjust, then you're going to get some good buys for sure. Pucky Hawk is here. He says, "Woot, hello all." Ada Fox says the markets are in Shizenhausen. Yeah, the markets are not good, dude. Gary Habe is here. Let's go. Matt's here. Matt says, "All right." Jay Marie says, "Anyone else applied at McDonald's today?" Let's go. I know I'm afraid to go down to McDonald's. I'm afraid everybody from Cardano will already be there in line filling out applications, basically. It's everybody from crypto, really. Curly Knox says, "Everything's fine. Room on fire gif." Yep. Yeah, it's we're in crypto hell, guys. We're in crypto hell right now. It's hard to deny. The pitchforks are in us. The pitchforks are in us. We're in crypto hell. It's true. Dolph B. Wolf is here. Good morning. Thank you for joining. We all know we're in crypto hell, so I'm not going to focus too much on that piece of it. We are. Ease Weeze, I don't think too many people would disagree with that sentiment right now. I think I think a lot of people would agree. That's why we're going to focus on interesting things. There's nothing any of us can do at the moment to change the price of ADA or the price of Ethereum or Bitcoin or any other blockchain ecosystem. I think most of us would be most interested probably in changing the price of Bitcoin and ADA, but there's not a damn thing we can do right now. The markets are bad enough for the break glass emergency Charles Steady Boys video. Yep, I just watched it. Mark Going says crypto hell. Let's go. Yeah, I mean, when you're in crypto hell or any kind of hell, I feel like in my life I've been in various types of hell, very similar to this. No fault of my own, just kind of like something happened. The GFC was kind of like this for me, definitely. Definitely fell into some kind of a hell through no fault of my own, and there was no way out. You just kind of had to accept the pitchfork jabbings were going to continue until morale improves. The heat was only going up. The flames are just getting closer. We're going through it. We're going through it right now. And Frazek's also right. If you, if you somehow were some person who'd just been watching crypto all this time and weren't holding any, now would be great. This would be heaven. Yeah, we covered some of that. I think yesterday, Coop to Scoop. CZ gave a little interview and he was just like, "Yo, guys, they sent me to prison and they installed some like basically DOJ receivers in here to monitor every goddamn transaction we do." He was like, those guys would have already told you if we were insolvent. That was the gist of what he laid out. I'm paraphrasing, so go listen to the actual interview. I put it on the screen yesterday, so you can find it. So don't take my word for it. Go listen to his actual interview. But he does make a good point. I mean, Binance is getting the most extensive proctology exam of any centralized exchange. Probably, and I don't know if the DOJ guys are still in there. They weren't really DOJ. I think it was like somebody the DOJ appointed, or it's just part of the deal. that a certain type of person would be appointed to be in there monitoring things. But CZ does make a good point. It's like they have been the most monitored of all the centralized exchanges doing business in the West, at least, over the last couple of years. So, I mean, that does kind of cut against they're insolvent thing. And I also showed one of the people who was getting the most traction on X talking about this. He produced a cease and desist letter that he said was from Binance, and the community notes had identified that as counterfeit. So these rumors could just be rumors. So, anyways, let's move on. So it turns out that Scott Bessent is Darth Vader. I don't know if y'all were aware of that, but Scott Bessent is actually Darth Vader. He is someone that nation states should fucking fear. Scott Bessent is like a perky, happy, smiling Darth Vader. That's who he is. And we found that out today. So Scott Bessent, you'll remember we covered his testimony in the House yesterday. He was in the Senate today. And he laid out some pretty interesting things. He said, yeah, we created a dollar shortage in Iran. He's like, I gave a speech, I can't remember the exact date he gave, but he's like, I gave a speech back in May at blah, blah, blah club in New York where I laid out the whole plan, how we were going to do it. And we did it. We created this dollar short in Iran that got all the protesters out in the street. We did that. The dude is just a perky, smiling Darth Vader. Countries around the world should not mess with Scott Bessent. The dude is actually scary, and it's scarier that he does it all. He recounts what they've done, smiling and just with perkiness, like it's 10 a.m. and he's already had 3 or 4 espressos. He says the Iranian currency went into free fall. Inflation exploded. And as a result, we've seen the Iranian people out on the streets. I would say the culmination came in December when one of the largest banks in Iran went under after a bank run. The central bank had to print money. We created a dollar shortage in the country. It came to a swift conclusion. The U.S. has many tools in its toolbox, and maybe the most potent of them look like this. It's not Tomahawks, it's not F-22s, it's not F-35s, it's not B-2s, it's the dollar. The dollar is the most powerful weapon the United States has. What's interesting about this is that you don't have to worry about this if you're into crypto. If you're a nation that has its assets in crypto, the US can't really do that with Bitcoin, right? We can't really fuck with them if their assets are in Bitcoin. The US can't turn around and really do anything if it's in crypto. Crypto kind of fixes this. Not that I would have wanted for Iran to be able to fix this, right? I'm more than happy for the people of Iran to, if this leads to them finally being free after all these decades since 79, I'm more than happy for them not to have fixed it. But it is kind of interesting. This, probably the most potent weapon in the US arsenal, is fixed by crypto. And here you see it's an interesting post, right? A lot of people don't realize how Congress actually works. In Congress, there are 8 people called the Gang of 8, right? And they get briefed on all the stuff that the rest of the congressmen don't get to hear about, right? They are very much sworn to secrecy. They can't talk about it. But you've got like the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee and the ranking member of the minority party. So Mark Warner has been both, right? He used to be the chair of the Senate Intel Committee. Now he's the ranking Democrat. So he's been in the Gang of 8. He's still in the Gang of 8. He knows when the US is doing stuff like this, right? All this stuff gets discussed, not all of it, but a lot of it gets discussed with the Gang of 8, right? They know a lot of the same things the White House is up to that the rest of Congress doesn't know about. And so it's no surprise to me that Scott Bessent goes in there, explains what they actually did, and then we get this from Mark Warner. In an exchange with Scott Bessent, the banking GOP FSOC oversight hearing. So note, Mark Warner is also on that committee, but like I said, he is the ranking Democrat on the Senate Intel Committee, which means he's a member of the Gang of 8 still. Senator Warner said he believes Bessent will be invited to the Senate Banking Committee's next round robin on crypto market structure, happening later today or tomorrow or Monday. Warner also joked that he feels like he's been living in crypto hell. So you notice, like, Warner, he's being on the Senate Intel Committee. He's probably watched this whole thing go down. He's probably been in on this since the very start and knows how it works. But I think it is interesting. It's kind of a good sign for us. Like, we're in crypto hell. Mark Warner just having to deal with crypto policy feels like he's in crypto hell. I'm glad to hear that. I want to see that pressure is on very, very senior senators even, because that means the White House is pushing really hard to get this shit through. If Mark Warner was like, crypto, what? Are we doing crypto stuff right now? I'm not even worried about it. Then I would get real worried. Since we're in hell, I want Mark Warner to also be in hell. And I hope he makes all the right decisions as far as crypto policy goes. If you were curious about the Gang of Eight thing, you can go and read all about the various positions Mark Warner has held. Previously chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee from February 2021 to January 2025. Now he is just the ranking Democrat. But these Gang of Eight congressmen, they know a lot more about what's going on than the rest of the congressmen. So, Leonardo Cordero says Cardano has best architecture. Strongly agree, Leonardo. Thank you for saying that. I'm not like taking credit for it. I'm just saying thank you for pointing out something that doesn't get said enough, right? Obviously, I had nothing to do with the Cardano architecture, but I'm damn glad that IOG did what they did, like I think you probably are. So thank you for saying something that we should probably say more often. Matt says Scott basically told them to go fuck off. Yeah, in the House hearing yesterday. I haven't watched the actual video of the Senate hearing today. I did watch a few clips, like him getting into it with the dragon. I was glad to see that, but the House one was the one that was really, really rambunctious yesterday. Omar Wright, he said he would pay Trump $10 billion out of the general fund. Like the TGA, he said he'd pay Trump $10 billion out of the TGA. Give me some more detail on that. Give me some more. I'd like to hear how that's working. There's got to be a little more detail on that. Fredzik says, I'm afraid that financial institutions have plenty of tools to fuck with crypto. I mean, so they do, right? Financial institutions can fuck with crypto, but they can fuck with crypto at large, right? If like Scott Bessent wouldn't have been able to be like, I'm going to fuck just with Iran's Bitcoin. I mean, they could try to like brute force. I mean, if you think that the NSA can brute force SHA-256 private keys, then, something that the rest of the world doesn't know. And the price of Bitcoin would immediately go to zero. But they can fuck with crypto, but they can't do targeted fuckery. Like they couldn't have just said like, oh, we're going to fuck up the money supply in Iran, in Iran, if Iran was using just Bitcoin, right? If they were just using Bitcoin, sure, financial institutions can do things to impact the price. They can manipulate markets, but they would have to do that for everybody. They'd have to do that for the whole asset. With the USD supply in Iran, the US government can do whatever the fuck they want. They can do a lot of things to prevent USD from getting into a certain country. Very difficult for them to do the same thing with Bitcoin. Very difficult for them to be like, what can we do to make sure that the clerical regime in Tehran can't get their hands on Bitcoin? That's a very different story. But the US government has a huge amount of leverage over all of the USD rels. Sure, you could argue they could fly in, crates of dollars from, wherever, Russia or something, from Moscow. They could fly crates of dollars into Tehran. The US can't really do much about that. But as far as electronically moving USD on normal TradFi rails, the US can exercise a huge amount of leverage over those kind of things. They can't do that with Bitcoin. The big Matt says the big banks can get fucked too. I think we all feel that way. The Genius Act is law. Okay. Antonio Credit says, what countries might be trailing the US as far as crypto policy? Might be trailing the US? I mean, the US only has the Genius Act right now. The US doesn't have Clarity Act. So anybody who has crypto taxonomy is not really trailing us right now. I'd say the US is in pretty rough shape in terms of crypto policy because we basically have none. We just haven't ever passed any good laws, right? We've just had the SEC doing regulation by enforcement, which is in a bad way. But not too many countries. It's pretty hard to. The only countries to be trailing the U.S. in terms of crypto policy are like when like India and China. Every couple of years, they'll alternately just like ban crypto. To some extent. At least those are the headlines that come out. I would say when those kind of headlines come out, then probably whatever country is banning crypto is trailing us. But since the U.S. basically has no past crypto taxonomy, it's hard to say that any country is really trailing the U.S. Once we get that passed, then then you could start comparing the regulatory schema of the U.S. versus other countries, I guess. Yeah, okay, yeah, you get what I was saying. Trump suing America for divulging his tax returns. Besant said he would cut the check if Trump decided we should pay him from the TGA. Yeah, I would say that would probably be a very unpopular move. if he wins the lawsuit, and like some federal court or the Supreme, I'm sure we'd have to go all the way to the Supreme Court almost. The Supreme Court orders Besant to cut the check. If the Supreme Court ordered Besant to cut the check, then he would have to do it, right? Or he would face, he would face the repercussions of not following, not following a judgment of a federal court. So, if this really happened, it would be a terrible, terrible optics for Trump to ever try to actually get that money. I think it would be more of a symbolic victory. If he actually tried to take the money, that would be like a Pyrrhic victory, right? That would be a very bad optics. But if it actually did go there, I don't think it would for the aforementioned reasons, but if it actually did, then Besant would really be following the orders of a federal court. It wouldn't even be about. He'd be doing it so that he didn't get put in jail for defying a federal court. Easy says even Big Pay said he's not buying ADA anymore. I saw that. Guys, you cannot. You should not listen to any Cardano influencers, right? I don't think that I don't regard myself as an influencer. I think I'm just a commenter, but also do not follow my advice on things like that, right? It's like if the Cardano influencers were good financial guides, they would have told you to sell a year ago, right? Ask yourself how many of them told you to sell a year ago and all throughout 2025 were like, you should have sold a year ago, right? Not many. So I don't think, I don't think we can really follow. I don't think anybody can really follow the advice of any crypto influencers really, because they're kind of always wrong, right? But yeah, that I did see that tweet though. Bitcoin crashing. Will out the Dan Pena video. God, Dan Pena, man. I've never actually met anybody who was like a true acolyte of Dan Pena, who's like he's the man, he knows everything. But I've only really seen like very short clips of him. But yeah, he seems to make a lot of conclusions. And I can't quite convince myself that there's support for his conclusions, right? Or that I can imagine, or that I believe that he has support for his conclusions, right? Nobody buying anything. Yep. Trump is the petitioner and the judge. No, I don't think that would happen. I think that would have to go through the courts. I think that would have to go through the courts. That would be if that did not go through the courts, there would be so many lawsuits over that from the other side. How are the governance funds supposed to work to fund projects if they've been cut in half just in a month? Yeah. It's a pretty bad situation I'm obviously on the side that wanted us to spend less. So the it doesn't really matter. I mean, we cut the checks for the ADA. The checks for the ADA were funded, regardless of value. But yeah, it's denominated in ADA. It's denominated in ADA. So they got less than they were banking on. They were, of course, all the projects were, of course, hoping that we would like zoom up to, a dollar or above when December rolled around, and then they could sell and actually end up with more money than they had talked us into. And the exact opposite happened. So yeah, the projects are just getting less money, unfortunately for them. Can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. This is the nature of the beast. Yep. When the mad cow announced the lack of his tax returns, my eyes rolled and closed. I knew the fire pit of hell was coming. Also, as the influencer believes in the project, they would say buy now while it's low. That's a good point. That's how I feel. That's why I felt great. I liked it when Charles said he was going to like sell the Blackhawk and mothball the plane, sell the Lambo, and go in. I was like, he's at least he puts his money where his mouth is. I mean, if he follows through on that, at least he's doing what he says he believes in. Dan Pena made of twisted steel and panther piss, according to himself. Okay, good to know. Good to know. I would not want to be within, scent range of someone made of panther piss. I will happily avoid, being in the same room as someone made of panther piss, but good to know. Yeah. Cruncha, good to see you. It's only 4 a.m. for you. Okay, good. Thank you for joining so late into the night. I appreciate it very much. Appreciate it very much. Omar says, I thought the two parties to the suit could make a settlement out of court and drop it from the courts. Yeah, I mean they could, but it's the same situation. If they, if he sues, um, if he sues the Treasury, because the IRS is a part of Treasury, if he sues the Treasury and Scott Bessent is like, "Oh, we settle. Here's 10 billion," the optics are going to be so bad. It's like they're going to be follow-on lawsuits from hell over that. So I think it's more. I think it's going to end up having to be more of a symbolic thing. If he actually tries to walk with any billions of money directly from the TGA, it's like it's kind of game over as far as PR goes. Turbo Dump, your name did come true. It is true. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. I tried to hit all the comments there, guys. It is kind of fun because it's such a we're in hell, so we might as well discuss it and have fun doing it. So it's good to hit the comments right now. But we do have some stuff to cover. So this is an interesting post. Why do you think Bitcoin is down so much? This is a comment on breaking. U.S. Treasury Secretary says Iranian leadership is wiring money out of the country like crazy. So, this is kind of a joke, but there's something to be said for this, right? Famously, some of these autocratic dictators are some of the richest people in the world. Elon, like, consistently has said that no matter how many times people say he's the richest person in the world, he's like, Putin is significantly richer than me, which is probably true, right? These like long-term dictators, they amass gigantic amounts of wealth, right? Because nothing, especially the more murderous they are, nothing can really happen within the borders of their nation state without them getting a piece of it, right? So they end up getting a piece of all the corruption, and they amass gigantic gigantic war chests, right? And then when they get chased out of the country inevitably, or they die, that money all has to go somewhere, right? So you can imagine, Kamini might have a lot of money, and it would only make sense for him to put a lot of it into something like Bitcoin, right? So if he's trying to move it somewhere, it's possible it could be convenient for him to sell it. So I'm not trying to say that that's like the reason various dumps are happening, but I'm trying to say something like this could produce some sell pressure, and somebody like him could have a gigantic amount of money, right? And it could apply to everybody who's sort of associated with that regime in Tehran, because they're probably all very afraid their days are numbered, at least in Tehran. And, they probably have to go somewhere. And that means, if you've been living in Tehran for decades with, billions and billions of dollars, you're going to, and you got some significant portion of that in crypto, you're going to have to buy. Wherever you're going to go, you're going to have to buy things. You have to buy your way there, and then you have to buy a new life there. And that's going to include, setting up new bank accounts, maybe buying new real estate to live on, houses to live in, cars, all these kinds of things. Kids got to go to new schools. All those things probably have to be paid with fiat. So, this is a real thing. There probably is some sell pressure related to people fleeing Tehran right now. How much? Who knows? Why they still blame CZ for stuff when he's not CEO anymore? That's a good point. Hey, Uncle Thanos, thank you for joining. Appreciate you joining. Good to see you. Leonardo Cordero says, crypto fear at 5. What a time to buy. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Pistons pressure. Senators are afraid of holding Orange Man accountable for crypto rugs. Yeah. You don't hear a lot of talk about that, do you? Inside the Senate. Well, when your wealth is essentially the treasury resources of a nation state, I'm looking at you, Saudi Aramco. Yeah, I mean, hell. Yeah, I mean, this is a good point Streetwise is making. The entire Middle East is afraid that the Iranian clerical regime is just going to hit the button and like full send all ballistic missiles. You know what I mean? And they're going to be pointed at targets across the Middle East, right? All over the Arabian Peninsula, into the Levant, like all over the Middle East, right? Targets. So, it's probably not just people connected to the regime in Tehran. It's probably a lot of people around the Middle East are like, I'm going to get the hell out of here. And so I'm going to liquidate a little Bitcoin. I'm going to walk with dollars. I'm going to show up in Switzerland and access extra dollars in my account, wherever place they use to transit their dollars. And, I'm going to buy myself a new life because things are about to get too hot around here. So yeah, could be all kinds of people. Greg Meyer, let's go. Sorry, I'm late. I was taking care of my 14 golden retrievers. Holy shit. You have 14 golden retrievers. That is, dude, you have a gang of golden retrievers. That's impressive. Those dictators remind me of Star Trek, TOS, a piece of the action. Which one is TOS? It's not TNG. TOS. Which one is TOS? Which one is Star Trek? TOS. Is that the cartoon? Is that the recent cartoon one that had some really funny stuff in it? I think the market is falling due to financial institutions not fully understanding crypto. People like Tom Lee, people bought a Bitcoin ETF for the first time, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I mean, this is a thing that we've seen in crypto before. When newcomers to crypto come in and, the original series. TOS is the original series. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Frazek. Okay. I think the market is falling due to financial institutions not fully understanding crypto. I think this is true. So, the volatility in crypto is nothing to laugh at. It's insane for people who've never been in crypto before. So they see the kind of volatility we've experienced. A lot of them are going to sell, right? It's like all of us who've been around crypto for a while, this is kind of, it's like doesn't make us happy, but we're kind of used to it. We know it's not the end of the world. But for people new to crypto, end of the world. And you're right, a lot of big financial institutions are new to crypto. Bitcoin lost the entire value of the 80 ecosystem in a day today. Oh God, depressing. The original series. Okay, thank you for that, guys. Thank you for that. Obviously, as a kid in the 80s and 90s, Star Trek was one of the only things on TV. So I watched a lot of the original series and The Next Generation. But we didn't have these acronyms back in the day. People just called it Star Trek, and you were either talking about the old one or the new one. there weren't like 20 different kinds of Star Trek like we have today, and this abomination called Starfleet Academy. I haven't watched a single episode, but I've watched several videos making fun of it on YouTube, and man, it's sad. It seems sad. Greg says we train service dogs. It's our dog pack. Awesome, dude. That's you should post some pictures of that on X or something. I would like to see. You said it was 14. I would like to see 14 golden retrievers. That's crazy. Good for you guys. ADA bottomed again to 24 cents. Oh my God. Depressing to hear. Okay, let's move on to some good news. Okay, so Senator Lummis, who of course is one of our greatest allies in the Senate. We're losing her. She's retiring. She doesn't want to do this shit anymore. She's out. She's going to hang out in Wyoming. I think she lives in Star Valley. I think she's in Star Valley, but she's done with this shit. She's out. But she is still being our very good friend in the Senate to this day. She asked Scott Bessent about the Clarity Act, and his response was pretty revealing. He wasn't like, yeah, I got to get that done. Kind of like, I don't care about that shit. I'm dealing with, you know, the TGA and the U.S. economy. I don't give a damn about the Clarity Act. That's not how it was at all. He said, I think that it's impossible to proceed without it. We have to get this Clarity Act across the finish line. So this was exactly the kind of response you'd want to see from the smiling Darth Vader, Scott Bessent. You want the smiling, perky Darth Vader to be on your side. You don't want him trying to destroy you like he apparently did to the Iranian money supply. So that's almost a thumbs up. I'm sure he's just gesturing, but it's almost like a thumbs up, like, hey, crypto, thumbs up. Smiling Darth Vader is on your side. So I was glad to see that. Thank you for that, Cynthia Lummis. I'll be sad to lose her. She also was explaining to everybody how John Thune, who is the leader of the Senate right now, as the sort of senior member of the party in charge around there, he has already set up some time for the whole bill to come to the Senate floor in the spring. So we're already looking at, the Clarity Act. In case you hadn't already figured it out, the Clarity Act is not some shit that's going to happen like on Monday, right? She's like, the ray of light here is that John Thune has already set up floor time for the whole bill to come to the Senate floor, right? So after they go through whatever's going to happen in the banking committee, and after they go through the conference where they try to reconcile whatever the Senate does and whatever the House does, he's already said, I'm sure he's talking about the floor time that would be required to just get it past the whole Senate so it can then go to conference. But needless to say, Clarity Act, not going to happen on Monday. We've got some time. This shit is scheduled for spring. So Google lost the equivalent of Greece or New Zealand's GDP this week. 5% of 4 trillion equals 200 billion. Amazing. Kraken bottom lower. Yep, 22.1. Jesus Christ. Wow. Terrible. And honestly, like, the reason why, the only emotional, like, heartstring it tugs at in me really is I should be DCAing right now heartstring. To be honest, that is not financial advice for anybody else, but honestly, when I see that number, the thing that makes me the most sad is I'm like, I should immediately abandon everything I'm doing, just go back to, the worst fiat mine hell, making the absolute most amount of money, and just be DCAing at these prices. That's the way it makes me feel. I'm just like, I should be back in the fiat mines, 12 hours a day, just DCAing my ass off. That's how it makes me feel. Actually, along those same lines, I've been kind of freelancing like crazy during the day lately, just trying to keep this going so that I don't have to jump back into the fiat mines full time. But those prices are not helping. Let me tell you guys, those prices are not helping. When I see prices like that, I want to go burrow deep into the fiat mines and just make as much money as possible for like another year or two and DCA, especially if the recovery is going to be like slow. If we can slowly rise up out of the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, I would be DCAing all through there. Not financial advice for anybody else. I'm just describing the way I feel when I see that number. So that is not financial advice for anybody else. Streetwise is for perspective, the market cap of Goldman Sachs, Intel, IBM, Shell, or McDonald's. These are all companies with roughly 200 billion in market cap. That's incredible. This is the 6th time ADA hits 24 cents. Last 3 years, following 6 big sell-offs, and crypto always climbs back up. Yeah, I mean, when I first started DCAing really consistently into ADA, we had just suffered a 90% pullback. We had just gone from 97%. We had just gone from over $1, actually more than 97%, over $1. And I started DCAing, and during my DCAing, eventually I was buying under 3 cents. So we got from under over $1, all pulled back all the way down to 3 cents. That was when I was DCAing last time, and I was super stoked about it. This time, what do you know? We have been at above $3, and now we're down here below 30 cents. It's exactly the same thing, right? It's this 90% pullback. I know for the last 4 years, all of the Fibonacci guys were telling us it wasn't going to happen. It was going to be a super cycle, all that bullshit. No, same pattern over again, 90% pullback. And what happened last time? Last time we went from over $1. Then in 2018, we're dropping back down below 3 cents. And then in the next parabolic high, we make it all the way up above $3. So I don't know what's going to happen this time, but it worked out pretty well last time. So, okay. Curly Knox says, Namate, here in New Zealand, GDP is $20 and a couple of sheep. Okay. This is what people get for listening to Tom Lee and Michael Saylor. Yeah, I mean, we don't feel like a bunch of fucking cybernetic hornets right now, do we? We feel like a bunch of dying cybernetic hornets. On my way to the sperm bank via the blood bank. Gonna go give all the fluids. Crypto Gypsy is gonna give all the fluids. Where's my COVID crash? 2 cents was a great day. Yeah, I think the buy that I made, I want to say, I have to go back and look, but I want to say it was like 2.8 cents or 2.7 cents or something like that. I remember looking at that and buying. God knows what kind of fees they put on me. They probably got me up. I don't know if they got me up to 2.9 or what with all their goddamn fees on the centralized exchange. But yeah, I remember that day. Banana. Yeah. Where is our banana zone? Where is our banana zone? We know who's been promising us the banana zone for years now. Selling banana shirts even from Grand Cayman. Just give me a Rand Furley and we can do some scrumpy hands till the price recovers. What is a Rand Furley? What is scrumpy hands? I don't even understand these references. Lummis is leaving after this year. She sure is. I'll be sad. I'll be sad to see her go. She was like a nice crypto grandma. Here's another one. So on stage at DA is this digital assets at Duke. Digital assets at Duke, Blockchain Association. Dan Spooler, who's the executive vice president, I guess, of Blockchain Association, said there will be another White House stablecoin meeting. So as suspected, Streetwise says that's New Zealand, Edward 40 hands. Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Thank you. That's descriptive. That actually helps me. So it's as suspected, that first meeting at the White House didn't do shit. We can tell it didn't actually do anything. Everybody said you can tell when somebody doesn't really want to negotiate when they send people who have no authority to negotiate. That's the way they described the way TradFi approached that meeting. So obviously nothing got done at that first meeting, and they're having a second meeting before the end of the month, guys. It's like, as most people listen to this, it's going to be the 6th. It's going to be the 6th of February, and the next meeting they're even happening is before the end of the month. So we've got a ways to go. Plastic banana, good time, rock and roller. Yep. New Zealand slang. New Zealand slang is wild. Whatever happened to Senator Hildebrand? Gillibrand, right? Gillibrand. Yeah, she was always with Lummis. We haven't seen her talking about crypto lately. Maybe she probably has been, but I haven't seen people reporting on that lately. Gillibrand. Her name is Gillibrand, right? If we see a 92% drop again, it will be at 11 cents sometime in the next 9 months. I could pass on that. I mean, unless I'm buying. If I'm deep in the fiat mines and I'm buying, I'd be okay with it. Yeah, I'm content with 22 cents. That's just fine with me. So here's something. I did throw in one thing. I didn't want to dwell on us being in crypto hell, but I did want to throw in one thing. I thought this was helpful. So here is a big crypto account. God, how big is this account now? Let's see. 48,000. So not gigantic, but also working at Coinbase. He's got an almost 50,000 follower crypto account. So this guy's into crypto. He says, I got laid off from Consensus the day after Ethereum hit $80 in December 2018, right? So think about that. People are freaking out because Ethereum dropped below $2,000. This guy got laid off from Consensus after ETH hit $80 in 2018. Truly the absolute bottom of the bear market. Dark times. Right now sucks too, but things are continuing to improve with every year. Hang in there. Arthur Hayes, this is his post from November 2018. 2 motherfucking digits, Ether. This is Ether going below $100. Think about that. That was disaster in 2018. People like Victor here getting fired from Consensus. Now, Ethereum just dropped under $2,000 and people are freaking out, right? Just a moment ago, we were describing how people in this chat were buying when Cardano was under 3 cents. Cardano was 10 times that just a few days ago. So it's all relative. What seems like disaster now would have been unbelievable. I probably would have stopped buying back in 2018 when I was buying at 3 cents. I probably would have stopped buying if it hit 22 cents. I would have been like, too high. This shit is too high. This is getting too rich for my blood. No, that actually did happen and I did keep buying. But, you know, on the day, if it had gone to 22 cents the very next day, I would have been freaked out, right? And now it's this unbelievably low number. So it's all relative. It's all relative. DeFi says, it seems crazy not to be buying right now. Yep. If I was in the fiat mines, I would definitely be buying right now, honestly. Yeah, we're back to where we were over and over again. Yep. The old Misty, the old lady, the mighty Waikato River. Sorry if I butchered that name, guys. It's all delay tactics now. I wish GOP senators take the wheel and decide to throw out the contentious yield debate or say, fuck off bankers. Yeah, just like make a decision. Like there's not really, I haven't been persuaded there's a compromise to be made here. This is kind of a zero-sum game at this point, right? It's like you're going to piss somebody off and it's going to be hard to figure out. Usually what they try to do is figure out how to half piss everybody off. It's going to be hard to hit that kind of compromise here because it's really, really fuck Coinbase or fuck the bankers, right? Fuck stable coins or fuck the bankers. And I think we all know what this is going to look like in 10 years, right? Is there any possibility in 10 years that stable coins don't have yield? We all know they're going to have yield, right? It's like, I think the GOP just knows if they fuck the bankers like that in February, right now, the bankers are going to do everything they can until midterms to fuck the GOP in the midterms. I think that's the real problem. I think like the administration, I mean, they're all in on crypto. I think they already know which way it needs to go, but they're trying to see if they can like thread the needle and not get the bankers to just like massively support opposition candidates in the midterms against the GOP. I think that's the real problem, right? We all know where this is going, but you know, politics are getting in the way once again, as always. TurboDump says, unpopular opinion, but with BTC DeFi coming online, I think it's best to buy BTC, then transferring into Cardano after it comes online. Should give opportunities for arbitrage, bringing in liquidity. Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth. I was thinking about this earlier today. You know, and I was thinking, okay, if I did jump back into the fiat mines, you know, seriously, like, you know, full work days every single day, I'm already, you know, kind of freelancing, not kind of, I am freelancing, but if I jump back in full time and I could DCA, like previously my DCAs for a long, long time had been only Cardano, but would I split between Cardano and Bitcoin, and what would the split be? That was something I was thinking about today. 24 cents looks good now. You know, and also another question people might ask is, what about midnight, right? Obviously, what about midnight? 24 cents looks good now. Ooh, depressing. BTC and 8A DCA. I think there's a lot of people in Cardano. I'm buying. Eventually, everyone will wake up and understand the importance of blockchain to regulate AI and to give us a fair monetary system and all the other social systems. Yeah, I mean, like the narrative about crypto being the money that AI will use has never been stronger. That's been so obvious for years, and now it's kind of coming true. That to me is a great argument for crypto. Small banks could become bigger banks if they just join us. Ooh, well put. Our current systems are max degen. Yep. Turbodump says, Uncle Thanos, same, leaning towards BTC, and I do like other projects on Cardano, but I'm trying to hold off on buying those. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably a lot of people right now. 2 months ago, you would have prayed to grab BTC at 60K. Now look, everyone is shitting their pants. Yeah, true. Talking about New Zealand beers. buying BTC first, alts will bleed against BTC. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where the markets are going right now. It would be just fine giving the middle finger to Chase and just use my little credit union. My bank is apparently all on board for crypto. They keep sending me reminders about it. Oh, that's funny. Have you looked at the ADA BTC chart lately? Crypto Rasta says, fuck the banks and the exchanges, just want DeFi. Fair enough. Midnight. Matt says midnight. Scrumpy for the win at Curly Knox. Though I did win a Waikato draft sofa one time at a liquor store. Wow. I've definitely never won a sofa at a liquor store. Okay. Yogi Barely says, it's so funny that your video about ICP, bro. Are you talking about the video I did a long time ago about when ICP launched? Is that what you're talking about? I definitely do remember that. BTC was the smart buy in deep bear when the halving cycle still were. And if for people who don't remember that far back, I was making fun of ICP because they somehow ended up settling on the same acronym as Insane Clown Posse. Obviously everybody's heard that joke. So BTC was a smart buy in deep bear when the halving cycle still worked. We're in major uncharted territory now. Yep, maybe I'll set up a golden retriever pack meme coin on Cardania just for the fun of it. Turbodump says, I haven't, but BTC had a track record of always going to new all-time highs. I'm looking to invest, not wanting to trade much. Okay. Blue Mammal says, I'm just here for the ride. Night token is 4.6. Is that right? Okay. Insane Clown Posse. Yep. I haven't seen the big pay video about not buying more ADA. I think he's switching tonight. Yeah, there's a tweet. There's a tweet you can find on his profile from today, I think. Today or yesterday. It's so funny back then. It's so funny that your video about ICP back then brought me to your channel. I've been a listener since then. Love your work. Oh, thank you. That's hilarious. I would not have guessed that anybody would have come to this channel because of that ICP video. But I appreciate you saying that, man. Appreciate that very much. Okay, guys. Sorry, I've been distracted by the comments once again. So let's get back to something we addressed yesterday. So Vitalik, there's quite a bit of discussion. I would almost call it backlash. To his message when he was just basically like, fuck the L2s, right? His previous message was kind of like, fuck the L2s for the following reasons. Now he's not really walking it back, but he's trying to like do a little PR work, kind of explain. He's doing more splaining. He's splaining to everybody what he's up to. Omar Wright says, all systems degen, Lieutenant Sulu engage. Yep, that is some Star Trek, the original series right there. I ran into ICP at the mall like 25 years ago. Oh my God. Wow. Okay. Have been following, this is Vitamin Butters, have been following reactions to what I said about L2s about 1.5 days ago. Oh, was it 1.5 days or 2? Because that is wildly different, Vitalik. Wildly different. I'm glad you specified it was 1.5 days ago. That is autism in action right there, guys. One important thing that I believe is maybe yet another EVM chain and make yet another EVM chain and add an optimistic bridge to Ethereum with a 1-week delay is to infra what forking Compound is to governance. Something we've done far too much for far too long because we got comfortable, which has sapped our imagination and put us in a dead end. And of course, he's right. An L2 that is really just an EVM copy pasta chain with an optimistic bridge with, or any kind of bridge with a multi-sig with like a 1 week delay to move your money. That sucks. You're not innovating there. You're not adding to Ethereum. You just did a copy of Ethereum and you wanted the same social crowd to be in on your shit. That's what that is. If you make an EVM chain without an optimistic bridge to Ethereum, aka an alt L1, that's even worse. How dare you? Ethereum Vitamin's telling you, how dare you make a competitor to Ethereum? We don't friggin' need more copy pasta EVM chains, and we definitely don't need even more L1s. L1 is scaling and is going to bring lots of EVM block space, not infinite. AIs in particular will need both more block space and lower latency than even a greatly scaled L1 can offer, but lots. Build something that brings something new to the table. I give a few examples: privacy, efficiency, low latency, but my list is surely very incomplete. A second important thing that I believe is regarding connection to Ethereum. Vibes need to match substance. And he goes on and on. He's basically saying, hey, everybody's building their own chain that's just a copy of Ethereum and they're calling it an Ethereum L2. Really, you just built a copy pasta Ethereum. You built a bootleg Ethereum and you wanted everybody to use it, so you called it an L2. You wanted all the Ethereum people to feel like it was a part of Ethereum, so you called it an L2. It's really a competitor to Ethereum. So he sums it up. He also says he sort of breaks this down into, a couple of different categories. He says he's a fan of many of the things that we called app chains, chains that basically just revolve around a certain app, that needs to do something. The other extreme of app chain, for example, the version where you convince some government registry or social media platform or gaming thing to start putting Merkle root of its database with Starks that prove every update was authorized and signed and executed according to a pre-committed algorithm on chain, is also reasonable. This is what makes the most sense to me in terms of institutional twos. It's obviously not Ethereum, not credibly neutral, and not trustless, but it would enable verifiable algorithmic transparency, which he thinks is good. He says, if you're the first thing, it's valid and great to call yourself an Ethereum application. He's saying if you're an app chain, it can't survive without Ethereum, even technologically, and maximizes interoperability and composability. If you're the second thing, then you're not Ethereum. Oh no, the mark of death, you're not Ethereum. But you are bringing humanity more algorithmic transparency and trust minimization. So you should just probably say those things. So he sums it all up like this. Do something that brings something actually new to the table. Vibes should match substance. The degree of connection to Ethereum in your public image should reflect the degree of connection to Ethereum that your thing has in reality. This doesn't really change the central thesis that everybody took from the last post. That was the Ethereum L2s suck and we don't really need them. So that was a big change. We talked about how that was a huge change sent down to the unwashed masses from High Priest Vitamin Butters up in the tower. So his recent post doesn't really change anything about that. Let's see. Okay. James says, I'm Sofa King happy. I'm Sofa King happy. I'm leaving the mines. Good for you. Good for you, man. That is something to be happy about. Leaving the mines for the day. Days like today in crypto are like putting your balls in a vice, but it does result in some decent means. That's true. People are inspired when we're in crypto hell. At these prices, I like Cardano and some other chains. Okay. Uncle Thanos, have you sold any of your Night tokens? I have not. I haven't even claimed any of my Night tokens yet. I don't get my big bag until the end of the month, but yeah, I haven't sold any. I don't have any plans to. Vitamin Butters is bitter. Yep. He sure seems to be. BTC 60. Yeah, I think it's finally hit him that they're way behind. I think they're way behind, and he's like, I gotta shake these motherfuckers up. I gotta say some things and hurt some feelings to get everybody going in the right direction because I'm the high priest. But I think what he doesn't realize is that having a high priest is the problem. BTC 64K, Sailor must be burning. Yeah, Sailor. Probably not his favorite day. Unless he just buys. So, yeah, well, I met Bananas at large as a preteen who made such bangers. Bananas at large. I don't even. Okay, bananas at large. Greg says no. I won't sell any crypto. Okay. Oh, Streetwise is asking if Brown Beardo is from the Upper Peninsula. If he's a Uper, he says no. He's from Wisconsin. the landlord of the Upers. That's hilarious. The landlord of the Upers. Coffee pasta. Yeah. I'll take the SS Badger over and dispute that. A lot of people are rethinking if they should hold on to all the rest of the tens of thousands of degen crypto tokens, knowing we don't know which will be labeled securities. That's a good point. This is a good point. It's kind of like, since the regulatory arbitrage is over, I've argued quite a bit that the real use case of crypto for the first many years, especially once we got ICOs, and we like had DeFi summer and all that, the real primary use case of crypto was regulatory arbitrage. People wanted to do shady capital formation, and crypto provided a gray area, because to do it in the light would have required filing a bunch of shit with the SEC. They didn't want to do that. It's expensive. You got to hire securities attorneys. Expensive. They didn't want to do all that shit, but they knew they could do it in crypto, and there was this gray area. That was the primary use case of crypto. Sort of as soon as ICOs came on the scene. That was it. That's how they did it. That was the primary use case. It shouldn't have been, but it was. That's funny. Reina says, everything is done. I'm buying more BTC and ADA, 10-year minimum hold. Never selling, actually. Wow. Nice. Never selling, actually. I like that. That's kind of, that's an old school crypto meme. It shows Morpheus offering Neo the red pill. And, the meme is basically like, about when Neo would sell, and Morpheus tells him, what if I told you one day you won't have to sell? That was one of the most powerful memes, I think, in the early days of crypto. Obviously, the HODL meme was the most powerful. Yeah, Matt just said it at the same time. The HODL meme was the most powerful in terms of adoption and getting people to be hodlers. That misspelling in that meme, that's where that came from. But a misspelling, it showed it was like a screenshot of 300 basically, and they misspelled hold. But aside from that one, though, the Morpheus, what if I told you someday you won't have to sell? That was a powerful one. Blockchain will also be used when upgraded for protection against quantum computing. The blockchain is Web3. Without it, nothing will be secure when quantum computing becomes available. Yeah, that's interesting. We talk a lot about quantum computing, but the idea that nothing will be secure, well, no, I mean, they're going to deploy quantum resistant algorithms for everything, though, right? So, I mean, we're definitely going to do it in crypto, but I mean, as much as we're worried about crypto, like, the nuclear powers of the world are also worried about their nuclear assets, maybe more than we're worried about crypto. Reina says, Matrix came out on my birthday. Laugh out loud. I am Neo. That's funny. I was in college when Matrix came out, and I went and saw it on that day. On the day you were born, I went and saw The Matrix in a movie theater. Not sure if Web 2 can become quantum resistant. Yeah, Web 2, I don't know. Crypto, though, we just got to replace the algorithms. So, let's see. Did we hit this? Just in, BlackRock's spot Bitcoin ETF records 10 billion in daily trading volume for the first time ever. I wish it was for better reasons than the price being so low. I wish it was because the price was going so high. The Democratic Party, they seem to be doubling down on hating our asses. Look at this. Democrats, yikes. So what did they say on their page? We're fighting for a better, fairer, and brighter future for every American. Funny, that's exactly what we say in goddamn crypto. And yet they say, yikes, crypto crash accelerates as investors flee risky assets. So true. Okay, fair enough, true. But then they post a picture of Trump to cement and a red chart going down to cement in everybody's minds this connection. Crypto equals Trump, right? They're trying to get everybody to believe if you hate Trump, you must hate crypto because Trump is crypto and crypto is Trump. This is not the way to make friends with us, Democrats. You saw what we did to your sweet, sweet Kamala, your sweet, sweet presidential candidate. None of us voted for her. Very few voted for her because she's a part of the anti-crypto army. Don't make your whole party a member of the anti-crypto army. Follow Schumer's example. He's trying to convince you guys not to do that. It's a terrible idea. So many Americans hold crypto. If you say to them, crypto is evil by algebra, Trump is bad, Trump is crypto, therefore crypto is bad. If you try to do that kind of algebra on us, we're not going to be friends. You want to be friends with us. It's a lot of money and a lot of people in crypto. So don't do this, Democrats. It's a bad idea. Okay. Did you talk Moltbook? Are you talking about Moltbook? That's okay. Feelings mutual. I was riding my motorcycle through Scotland when The Matrix came out. Such good memories. Ooh, that would be a good thing. That'd be fun. Riding a motorcycle through Scotland in the 90s. That sounds like a good time. Hating crypto is equivalent to hating the future. Yep, that's how I feel. I like crypto. Trump, not so much. Fair enough. You can have any political views you want in here. I just think neither party should be trying to make enemies of us. Dems definitely. God, it's such a mistake. It's such a mistake for them to hate us, right? It's a reason why guys like this, RFK Jr., I could not have imagined as when I was a younger person, I could not have imagined such a prominent Kennedy would one day be leaving the party, right? This would have been unimaginable to me. Of course, he's pro crypto too. And what happened? He left the party. He basically had to leave the party. It's crazy. It's crazy. You don't want to alienate people who are embracing the future. So I threw this in here. This is not related to economics much. It is a little bit, I guess, but I just thought this was such a great thing. So Kennedy, who reversed our food pyramid, turned our food pyramid upside down in a good way. If you are sympathetic to carnivorism, obviously I'm a long-term 6-year carnivore now, so I like that. I also like this. He says every hospital in the country is now going to have to publish their prices. If you go to a restaurant and look at the menu, the prices are there. Healthcare is the only place where you can't see your prices. If you are outside the US, this might seem crazy to you that it's impossible to figure out how much medical care is going to cost. I have definitely been the recipient of serious medical care, both inside the US, not for anything, I'm healthy. I don't have any illnesses or anything, but I've definitely had medical procedures done both in the US and outside the US. And man, the place outside the US was not like one of the richest countries in the world or anything like that. It was definitely not a country you put on the list as one of the richest countries. And God damn it, the standard of care there was very good. From my perspective, indistinguishable from the care I get in the US. And it was so much easier. Everything about it was better and easier. The whole experience better. Everything was cheaper. You could actually figure out how much shit was going to cost beforehand. They're happy to tell you. And it was reasonable. The exact opposite of the US. The US has been fucking up healthcare for a long, long time. So I think this is a great first step. Just tell us how much it's going to cost, right? I know it's all this weird insurance-based system now, so they can't really say because there's weird stuff going on behind the curtain. But man, if you've ever had to pay for medical care, both inside the US and outside the US, you can see how broken this goddamn system is. Very broken. So Kennedy, this is why I voted for the man, because I knew he would get in there. He would get in there and do some good things. He's a weird guy. He's a weird dude, but I think he's doing some good things. Okay. 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 Yeah, I think a lot of people are in the same boat as you, Pucky Hawk. Um, Omar says, where are the pro crypto Dems? Yep. That's a question a lot of us are asking for sure. Politicians will come and go with the wind. Crypto is here to stay and is our future systems. Good point. It's very optimistic. I like that. They're using ETFs to pump and dump us. Yeah, I mean, they're going to use the tools that are most familiar to them. And, if we're talking about TradFi, they're going to use the tools that are most familiar to them. And are they going to buy on the way up and sell before it goes down? Probably. Probably. Do you have 2 lace extensions on your browser? So if you've done any development work on something for midnight lately, you will know for certain test environments. I'll put it that way. They dump in the morning and then buy back at close. Jay Marie says, I'm broke rich. James says, I'm broke. Do you want the line cook or the Michelin chef? Yeah. Oh, that is fantastic. I didn't see this news yet. Yeah, that's how I feel. Rokana knows its value. There are a few, but there is a lot of groupthink. Yeah, that's true. There are. I actually feel bad. I actually feel bad for some of the pro crypto Democrats right now because they made the intelligent choice, right? They embraced the future, and now their party is turning around and being like, you know, you are a Trump lover, basically, which is, I'm sure, the worst possible insult on that side of the aisle right now. So I feel bad for him. Okay. It's not a healthcare. Oh, I mean, really AI though. Really AI. I would say AI is the dev on that particular little thing. I'm just its human friend. It's not healthcare here in the US. It's trauma care. They do very little for your health. Yeah, I mean, even with trauma stuff though, even with I mean, because I've gotten trying to think if I've actually had a procedure for being injured overseas that was done by overseas physicians. I don't think I've had like legit trauma care. I've had a procedure where they were definitely using like scalpels on me. I guess that wasn't trauma care. But you're right. I mean, in the US, healthcare is basically like pills. Like we have emergency rooms that, we have good ER docs who can take care of you. And then we have a lot of pills. That's kind of healthcare in the US. So I'm trying. I've definitely been injured. I've definitely been injured outside the U.S. like recently. I don't think I actually did. I go to the hospital? I don't think I was actually in the hospital when that happened. I'm trying to remember back. I'll ask. There's somebody in this building right now who will know the answer to that question. But is the midnight preview? Yes, midnight preview. The midnight preview version of Lace is a thing. Imagine being against the motor car because the Harding administration supported it. Excellent example. you're being accused of being a Harding lover because you're pro motor car. Excellent example, Streetwise. That's a very good analogy. How would that partisanship have worked out for your portfolio? Yep, very good example. GitHub is cool. Yeah, GitHub is good. GitHub is good. I mean, there's some problems with how much they're training their AIs on your stuff. Some people, I shouldn't say it's a problem. I should say some people don't like that part, but what the fuck is USDCX? Is it aided? So we've talked about it. Is it aided native token or is it on midnight and basically not? No, it is. It is going to be a Cardano thing too. So Circle, it's a Circle product. Circle has this thing called CTTP or something like that, like Circle Token Transfer Protocol or something. And you're going to be able to switch between USDCX and USDC, I guess, via the CTTP. My big question, the question I keep asking, here's the important thing to me. So I haven't seen any indication that USDCX is going to be listed on Coinbase. Maybe it is, but I haven't seen anything about that yet. So my big question is, here's what I really want out of a goddamn stable coin. Like, honestly, here's what I want. I want to be able to buy it on a centralized exchange and transfer it directly to my Cardano wallet. That's what I want. If there's an intermediate step in there, it's not really the same as like using USDC in the EVM world, right? I basically just want that same experience. I want to be able to buy it on a centralized exchange and send it directly to Lace, you know what I mean? Or Eternal. That's what I want. If there's an intermediate step, of course I'll tolerate it, but then it becomes basically the same as me using one of our Cardano native stable coins, because I also can't buy USDM on Coinbase, right? If I could, then it would instantly be better than USDCX. And you can say, oh, but the liquidity is going to be so different, right? And that is a thing, right? You do want liquidity with a stable coin, but if there's this intermediate step, I don't think it's going to do what people are hoping it's going to do, right? Because I can already buy ADA on Coinbase, send it to my Cardano wallet directly, and then turn that into a Cardano native stablecoin. So for me, the utility is kind of the same. The liquidity is different, but I mean, mainly what I'm interested in is being able to buy it and getting it into the Cardano ecosystem. And if there's an extra step, then it's kind of the same number of steps, right? Granted, I am not a DeFi degen for whom liquidity is the only thing that matters. But I think most of us in Cardano, we're not those guys. Those guys do exist. They have their own little ecosystems. Okay. James says, yes, USA doesn't fix your problems. They crutch it. Yep. There are different prices on the menu depending on who does the service. That's the problem. That's exactly why we can't have the menu, because the price is totally different depending on which insurance company is paying, how much they're going to push back on the service providers. It's terrible. The way the system works is terrible. Omar says, I love greasy spoons, but there's nothing like having the president's personal chef whip up something special to try with your meal. Dude, the president's yeah, that'd be interesting. I definitely know. Maybe I won't get into that. I'll say this: the White House has some very interesting recipes that they break out on special events. That is definitely true. Okay. Islamic mediators propose a 3-year delay. So getting into IR, I think everybody can feel that. I think everybody can feel that we're getting close to something happening in the Persian Gulf here. So here's what's been going on recently. According to Al Jazeera, right, obviously of Qatar, mediators from Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt have proposed a framework for Iran-U.S. talks expected tomorrow in Oman. Freeze Iran's uranium for 3 years. Coincidentally, right when Trump is out. Cap enrichment below 1.5% afterward. Move existing stockpiles to a third country. Limit ballistic missiles. Halt arming regional proxies. In other words, a 3-year pause. Neatly timed to outlast Donald Trump's term in the White House. No permanent rollback, just delay. So obviously the same problem is can anybody really negotiate with the clerical regime in Tehran? I mean, they just killed tens of thousands of their own people. Can you trust anything they're going to say? They've been funding proxy groups, committing terrorist acts throughout the entire region for decades now. Can you really trust anything they say? It's like, hey guys, we're going to send in UN monitors to make sure you're not enriching that uranium. And they're like, okay, cool. We'll totally take them to, bunker number 17. We certainly won't hide that from everyone. So, and of course, we have ways to detect these kind of things, but can you really trust this regime? I think a lot of people in the US, probably in the White House right now, are debating that exact issue. And I'm sure they've already come to the conclusion you cannot. I don't think anybody reasonable is coming to the conclusion you can. So here's an example of why not. Iran is burying the entrances to its nuclear facilities once again. Satellite imagery analyzed by the Good Institute for Science, not the bad thing with that acronym, shows dirt is being placed at the entrance to the Esfahan nuclear site that was hit during Operation Midnight Hammer in June of last year. So why are they doing that? We've already hit them. They're obviously not trying to hide them. They just don't want those facilities to get hit again, probably. They're trying to figure out some way to make it harder to destroy those facilities even more if they've been down there trying to rehab stuff. Um, Yeah, I think this is the only reasonable conclusion, right? Like, you hate to use the phrase regime change because it has such a sordid history, especially with US foreign policy. But god damn it, has there ever been a better case for regime change? It's like, man, the yellow cake stuff, Saddam, Iraq, not a good decision. History doesn't look kindly on that decision for regime change. But god damn it, this one, pretty good. Pretty good. I don't know if there's ever been a better case for regime change. We've done a lot of stuff in Latin America that wasn't good either, but there's never been a better case for regime change than this one. They're butchering their own people in the streets so much they can't even move all the body bags. Like this is it. It's mass murder. Okay, and it does kind of look like this is all just formalities. It's like Iran is trying, in my opinion, what this looks like, the clerical regime is just stalling for time so they can prepare for the strike. And the US is stalling for time so they can build up assets to prepare for the strike. It's like everybody is preparing for the final showdown here. I don't know if either side has any real belief in the outcome of the diplomatic process here, but the US is just building up more and more assets. Another large-scale US personnel movement appears to be underway. A passenger-configured Boeing 747 operated by US Transport Command through Atlas Air with 453 seats departed Baltimore with a routing through Ramstein before continuing to Kuwait. So that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people to be moving over to Kuwait. And I think we're probably going to see some of this. If the pager operation caught your attention, the Islamic regime is about to get a lot more surprises. I think this is certainly true. Like the extent to which Mossad has penetrated the Iranian regime is incredible. And we only got to see a tiny bit of that. Obviously, the pager operation was Hezbollah, you know, famously supported by the clerical regime. But we didn't. It's hard to believe. And they had the one crazy assassination inside the guy's house in Tehran that made pretty big mainstream news. But it's hard to believe that we won't see some other crazy stuff that nobody predicts. After the pager thing, it's probably going to be some things we're going to see. So, okay. Let's see. No better case for regime change. Vietnam was a test case for proxy wars. Yeah, I mean, Vietnam's another. So the Vietnam one is kind of complicated because that's like the most famous quagmire in U.S. foreign policy. That's the one that had the worst PR impact, the worst optics. You know what I mean? It's like you had, college kids demonstrating in the streets. You had the whole hippie movement, all kinds of My Lai massacre, all the horrible things, right? All the horrible things that could go wrong went wrong. But at the same time, there is this argument, that you'll hear, mainly people don't like to talk about it now, but you'll hear it mainly from like international relations professors who talk about the Cold War. And they're like, okay, everybody knows that the Vietnam War was like the most protested war in the modern era for the US government, the worst like PR disaster, dead American, young Americans in this tropical war zone. Nobody knows why we're there. But the argument the IR professors make is that there really was like the US foreign policymakers really were worried about the domino effect thing. They were like, okay, we've got a surging communist China, and they can basically just roll right on through all of Southeast Asia, right? If somebody in the West, if somebody in the capitalist world doesn't help support some of the forces standing in opposition to the communist forces, the domino theory was predicting at the time that, you know, Laos gets taken, Vietnam gets taken, Thailand gets taken, Malaysia gets taken, Burma gets taken. And they're like, if we don't help stand up forces to stand in opposition to communist forces, maybe all of Southeast Asia becomes communist, right? And then we had Gulf of Tonkin resolution, very shady grounds to launch a war on. We know that the Gulf of Tonkin incident was all some bullshit invented to launch us into the Vietnam War. But at the same time, it's like if you go to those countries I just mentioned and you talk about this whole thing, like what you hear most often is, I'm super glad my fucking country didn't get taken over by, communist forces. We're like super glad we were able to retain our nation state as part of the, free world. But at the same time, you have this great counterclaim to that. It's like, look how things turned out for Vietnam, right? Vietnam is doing fantastically currently. And obviously the communists prevailed in Vietnam. So as of 2026, Vietnam is like a favorite place for everybody in the Western world to go visit. The economy, is expanding in new and wonderful ways. But it's kind of the same story as a lot of other, not all, but a lot of other, sort of like I would call them almost post-communist states, sort of like the communist states that embraced capitalism so hard that you go there and you're like, this shit is more capitalist than any capitalist country. Right? It's like you go to a lot of these countries and you're looking around and you're like, it's way easier to start a business here. And the people are way more capitalistic. The way everything actually works, way more capitalistic than what's supposed to be the capitalist world. So there are various arguments, on both sides of, was Vietnam a complete waste of time? Was there some value in, countering what could have been the ramifications if the domino theory turned out to be correct? There's various arguments. And then in 2026, you have like a lot of people who are like, I'm real glad the communists didn't take over my country. But at the same time, if you go to Vietnam, you're like, this is capitalist as shit. This turned out okay for these guys. So various sides of that discussion. Brown Beardo says it would be hard to top the pager op. That was historic. That was crazy. I mean, that was probably, oh my God. I mean, how can you even imagine? Like, obviously they can't do the same thing in Iran. The clerical regime, if they did buy a bunch of pagers from anybody recently, they're probably not carrying those pagers around right now. So what else could there be? What else could there be? How do you get something inside all of their houses that you can explode? It's a tough one. Legacy systems pace of the let go versus rate of adoption. What will most likely be the catalyst to solidify China competition or AI out of US? Okay. Legacy systems pace of the let go versus rate of adoption. What will most likely be the catalyst to solidify China competition or AI out of US? Ooh, I don't think I understand the question. You'd have to elaborate a little bit on that one. Famous last words, no better case for regime change. So, I mean, but name like what has been a better case for regime change? World War II Germany? We haven't had, Stalin murdered a lot of his own citizens. Mao in the Great Leap Forward was responsible for the death of a lot of its own citizens. We've had various types of genocides over the years, but when you kill, depending on who's measuring, 20,000 to 60,000 of your own citizens in the street, you know, you've kind of forfeited the right to continue ruling that country. Um, Legacy systems pace of the let it go versus rate of adoption. Thoughts? You mean, so when you say, okay, are you talking about the rate of adoption of, are you talking about the rate of adoption of crypto versus the part to understand is the legacy systems pace of the let it go? Talk to me about that one. Mika from Morning Joe, her dad armed Mohammed bin Laden. Her dad armed bin Laden. Yeah, I mean, the weird thing about bin Laden, I think most people on this channel probably know this, but like bin Laden was very active in Afghanistan, like long before, we think of him as like hiding in a cave in Afghanistan and eventually getting caught in Pakistan in that compound. But it was the US giving stingers to Afghans to shoot down Russian Hind helicopters during the Russian war in Afghanistan. So yeah, the historical trail there is very apparent, but I don't think, I mean, that was not our activities arming rebels in Afghanistan. Rebels is even the wrong word, but arming groups in Afghanistan, that wasn't really regime change, right? That was just so they could mess with the Russians and the Russian helicopters. So that wasn't really a regime change situation. Yeah, worked so great with China. Yeah. They built a tech company from nothing for years in order to sell to the terrorists, then later set them off. Yeah, the crazy part is that they actually built out this supply chain for the beepers, like the patience, the level of patience just to get there to eventually pull it off. So crazy. So crazy. The level of patience is amazing. Island Native, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Germany was changing other people's regimes. Oh, yeah. Germany, I mean, there have been lots of countries. Germany is obviously like a horrible genocidal example, right? But there have been a lot of, you could argue that all of the nations that conquered other nations were engaged in regime change for sure. Brzezinski, yeah. Um, yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, if you're the US and you're arming, if you're the US and you're arming uh militant groups in Afghanistan and giving them stingers specifically so they can blow up Russian Hind helicopters, for sure you're engaging in proxy war. I don't think anybody debates that. Um, that's kind of funny. It is actually Bin Laden's origin story is the plot of Rambo 3. Was it 3? Was number 3 the one where he has the arrows in the cave and everything in Afghanistan? Was that number 3? But yeah, I know. I agree. I agree for sure. I mean, the history of US support of various groups in the Middle East is like some of the darkest stuff ever, right? You think of, I mean, Saddam is another one, right? It's like Saddam was the US's best friend for a long time. We spent a long, long time supporting Saddam until all of a sudden the US is super worried because Saddam gets pissed, claims the Kuwaitis are slant drilling under the border. So Saddam gets pissed, and all of a sudden the US is like, oh, you're not our friend anymore. You are not our friend anymore. We are going to invade and engage in regime change. And we actually didn't. George Bush Sr. Went in and kicked the Iraqis out of Kuwait, sent them back to Baghdad, could have taken all of Iraq and did not engage in regime change. It wouldn't happen until his son came to power, which is kind of interesting. But prior to that, prior to Desert Storm, um, Saddam had been a strong regional ally of the U.S., which is another story. Um, No, those have been around for years. We've had those since those were in Middle Eastern politics textbooks from the 90s. Those have been around for a long, long time. Oh, yeah. Dude, we used to when I was a kid, we used to like, they would literally there would literally be accounts on there would literally be accounts on the news. It would be like on the news when I was a kid. They'd be talking about Afghans using American Stingers to shoot down Russian Hind helicopters, and we would like cheer from our living rooms. That's how it was. That's how it was. Coin market cap, fear and greed index is at 5. Never seen that before. That's crazy. I'm actually somebody mentioned that earlier on in the stream. I'm actually gonna go over there and take a look at it. The Israelis put a bug in their center fusions and blew all those up. So why not do the same with the drones? Sounds like a job for Israeli. That would be hilarious if they somehow uh if they somehow were able to put some kind of charge or something inside all the Shahed drones and blow them all up on the ground. That would be hilarious. I almost think those would probably be I mean, obviously they're manufacturing those themselves, so you would have to have somebody in the factory, and then everybody else on the line would have to not notice. Whereas the pagers, they kind of just controlled the entire supply line. Those weren't manufactured by Hezbollah, and they weren't really part of the manufacturing process. So a little bit tougher, but I can understand if you got your junk blown off by Israel, you'd be a bit biased. But for the rest of us, that op was objectively something awe-inspiring. Yeah, I mean that was the greatest. That was like the greatest operation in modern history, for sure. Saddam got the key to the city of Detroit. Seems appropriate. Yeah, I mean, God, there are there are a lot of stories from I mean, there were a lot of Americans. There were I'll put it this way. There were a lot of Americans back in the day who were tasked with providing guys like Saddam the things they needed from the West. I mean, there's a lot of Americans who were like doing business with Saddam, at the behest of the US government. Um, that's a, that's how it went. The US put a lot of dictators into power just as long as they kept the commies out and kept the oil flowing. Yeah, I mean, that was our whole game. That was our whole game. Latin America, everywhere. A lot of that going on. So, anyways, I still think, I mean, you can find terrible dictators throughout history, right? Like, obviously, Hitler is the ultimate case of regime change. Stalin, there was no regime change, but murdered a lot of his own citizens. Mao, through the Great Leap Forward, his policies basically murdered a lot of his own citizens. But, in modern times, it's kind of hard. You could say, the genocides in Africa, you can certainly pick out some genocidal leaders. We can talk about the Armenian genocide. There have been genocides, right? But in modern times, like recently, it's like Iran, pretty good candidate. Those guys have definitely forfeited their right to rule that country. Legacy money systems versus tech rate of adoption. Okay. Legacy money systems versus tech rate of adoption curve. Any thoughts? Adoption of use case mainly referring to DeFi or layer 2, for example. Apologize if okay, no, I think I understand what you're saying now. So, okay. So I think it's kind of like the internet. So last night I pulled up the Wikipedia page for ARPANET, which was what we now call DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Now that the DoD is called the Department of War, I don't know if they've changed the name of DARPA, but back in the day it was called ARPA. And they started the internet in what year did we find? 1963 was the first sort of deployment of what we would later call the internet. We looked at a map of the internet, how lame it was. ARPANET was like super lame. I think it's kind of the same thing with the legacy money systems, right? The legacy money systems are sort of like the way they're working because the TradFi institutions are in charge of them. The rate of technological advancement is pretty slow. I mean, they're always trying to do, there are like cool fintech startups that basically like are doing things on TradFi rails, but the rate of advancement is pretty slow compared to something like crypto. So the advancement of the two systems, and I know your question already presupposes this, like legacy money systems, they're not doing all the technological progress. The question you're asking, though, is about the adoption rate of crypto. So, I mean, if you look at that, the reason why I mentioned the DARPANET thing is that the internet, its earlier manifestation as ARPANET, was around since 1963, and it didn't get really cool and see mass adoption really until the 90s, until everybody got those AOL discs and the, you know, 14.4 modems, basically. It didn't really see mass adoption. So it took a lot of decades. Crypto, even though it feels ancient to us, has only been around since 2009. So I think, I think the crypto adoption curve is going to far outpace the legacy money system thing. If that's not true, then probably we're just like totally wrong about the value of crypto, right? I think the adoption of crypto has to like vastly outpace the continued growth of the legacy money system, or we're totally wrong about crypto. We're like wrong about the value proposition of crypto fundamentally. So I think that'll happen, but it has only been since 2009. When it actually happens, I'm not sure. Okay, tell us about Operation Wolf. You could actually argue Barbarossa. Is it Barbarossa? You could argue that the failure of the Allies was it Operation Barbarossa. The failure of the Allies then, like that's such a big failure. Maybe that's the greatest operation for the opposite side too. Our government is the biggest trafficker. We do fund wars. Yeah, there's a lot of documentaries, about that. I don't know. It's hard to verify any of those things. You know what I mean? It's pretty hard to verify. There's a lot of testimony, a lot of people giving testimony about that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, a lot of those things, there's a lot of discussion about that. Yeah. Okay. Well, we can talk about the biggest. We can talk about the biggest successes. We can talk about the biggest successes of. I would argue the cracking. What was the cracking of the Enigma machines? Maybe the cracking of the Enigma machines by was it Bletchley Park? That was a pretty big one too. We could talk about the biggest military successes. I would say that the pager thing, while it was kind of military in nature, it was sort of more of an intelligence success. But we could talk. That could be a whole podcast. We could talk about those kind of things. But I think we've kind of covered. We've been going for an hour and 43 minutes now. I think we've kind of covered. All of the big news for the week. So I don't know if we're going to see. The one thing we didn't talk about was there's a lot of rumors about the USS George H.W. Bush carrier strike group leaving Norfolk. People have been reporting that it's headed to the Mediterranean. But actually, the only thing that's confirmed is that it's sort of doing workups. It's sort of doing pre-deployment workups. So it's unclear if it's actually like steaming across the Atlantic toward the Mediterranean right now, or if it's just doing sort of pre-deployment workups, all of the configuration, sort of like strike carrier group elements working together, making sure everything is calibrated perfectly, all that kind of stuff. What's called CompUX. I think the official story right now is they've been doing those kinds of things, but they are like, I think at last check, they were like 90 nautical miles off the Outer Banks. So they're obviously a little bit south and a little bit east of Norfolk, Virginia, where they departed from. So it's very possible they could be headed over to the Mediterranean, which would make sense. I keep mentioning there were two strike carrier groups when they launched the previous attacks on the Iranian nuclear research sites. So it would only make sense that before any strike now, which would be a much bigger one, obviously, they would also have two strike carrier groups, one in the Eastern Mediterranean and then the USS Abraham Lincoln in the Sea of Oman. But if the USS George H.W. Bush did leave just in the last couple of days, then it would be like a week, 10 days or something before it'd be in the Mediterranean. So the timeline kind of starts to match up if any of that's true, because then they could go through the puppet show of doing the attempt at diplomacy in Oman tomorrow. Everybody could talk about it for a week. And then the George H.W. Bush could suddenly show up in the Eastern Mediterranean. And it's like, surprise, we're all ready to go. It'd also give them another week to move more air defense units into the Middle East, move more of everything into the Middle East. But at the end of the day, we really don't know what the timing is. And nobody actually seems to know. There's no actual confirmation that the USS George W. Bush is actually headed to the Mediterranean, or just basically doing workups, off the Outer Banks. So anyways, there's a lot going on right now. I don't know how much clearer things will be on Monday. Over previous weekends, I'd been hoping that we'd see the future becoming more clear, right? Both on the world geopolitical front, on the international relations front, and on the crypto front. This week, I'm not at all sure if anything's going to be more clear on Monday. I have a feeling in the next, 7 to 14 days, things are going to be more clear. I don't know what it's going to be like on Monday when we come back. When we talk on Monday, I don't know if things are going to be more clear. Okay. Yeah, Omar's bringing up the Iran-Contra affair. The Iran-Contra affair was really interesting. I was old enough to remember the entire scandal playing out on TV. That's a really wild one. It was under so are you saying the pardons were, the Iran-Contra affair was really under Reagan, right? Maybe the pardons were written under Bush 1, but the scandal played out under Reagan, which was kind of interesting. But that was a wild period in U.S. history. My son-in-law used to be assigned to an Ohio-class nuclear submarine. I got a tour of the boat. The submarines are the equivalent of a Death Star in Star Wars. Amazing technology and very scary. Oh, that'd be a really interesting experience. I can believe it. I've never been inside one, but I can believe everything you're saying about it. But anyways, I hope everybody had a good week. I hope everybody is looking forward to a good weekend, and I will talk to you soon.